Good evening. At this time, I call this High Springs City Commission meeting to order, September the 8th, 2016, at 6:30. Please rise for the invocation, and following the invocation, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. Pastor Hall, please.
Father God, tonight as we come together, we celebrate 124 years as a city that has come together for the purpose of nurturing families and interaction that causes us to grow and to know the peace and the love that can interact between us. We ask, O Heavenly Father, that tonight this body would minister to that community that seeks the opportunity to live and to carry out their dreams and their hopes in the midst of an environment that is conducive to family growth. We ask, O Heavenly Father, your wisdom, your guidance, and your direction. And Lord, we most certainly would give thanks for the grace whereby we are saved. We would thank you, O Lord, for the love and the mercy that has made all things possible for us in this community. And Lord, in that precious name, the name of Jesus, we give you praise. Amen.
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 I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Mayor Williams.
Here.
Vice Mayor James.
Here.
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 Thank you. At this time, I entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda.
So made. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicating by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. At this time, we entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes for August the 11th, August the 25th, 2016 Commissioner meeting.
I'll move approval of the August 11th and August 25th Commission minutes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. At this time, we have a proclamation.
Mr. Mayor, I'll go ahead and read the proclamation. This is a proclamation of the City of High Springs in the state of Florida, whereas September 17, 2016 marks the 229th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention. And whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary, and to the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate the occasion. Whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America, designating September 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week. Now, therefore, our Mayor, Byron D. Williams, Mayor of the City of High Springs, hereby proclaims the week of September 17th through the 23rd, 2016 as Constitution Week, and asks our citizens to reaffirm the ideals to which the framers of our Constitution had in 1787 by vigilantly protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through this guardian of our liberties, remembering that those who have lost the rights, they may never regain those same rights. And our mayor has set his hand and caused the seal of the City of High Springs to be affixed this 8th day of September 2016, signature for our mayor, Byron D. Williams, and attested by Jenny L. Parham, our city clerk. The appropriate motion is to pass the proclamation as read by its entirety.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions or comments? Anyone from the audience? Yes, ma'am, please come.
Thank you, Mayor Williams, for proclaiming the week of September the 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week in the City of High Springs. I'm Annette Jones, current regent of the Gainesville chapter of the National Society Daughters of the American Revolution. I might add that I'm a resident of High Springs and that many of our members of Gainesville chapter are also residents of High Springs. The National Society, Daughters of the American Revolution, is a patriotic society devoted to the institution of American liberty. We firmly support the Constitution as written and intended by our founding fathers. Applicants for membership in our society pledge allegiance to the United States of America and agree to support its Constitution. And at each meeting of the chapter, we reaffirm the importance of this document in our lives as we recite the preamble to the Constitution. During Constitution Week each year, the 5 DAR chapters in North Central Florida sponsor a Constitution Week program with an appropriate topic. This year, our speaker is Brigadier General retired Julia Cleckley, who will speak on A Promise Fulfilled. During this program, the proclamation will be on display, and High Springs will be recognized for patriotic support of our Constitution and its significance to this mighty nation we are privileged to call home.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So at this time, we have a motion on the floor. All in favor, come by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Concept.
That's fine. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Again, we thank God for this great United States of America. I almost said let the church say amen, but we're not in church. Let the people say thank you.
Amen.
Okay, moving right along. Budget, first item to consider resolution 2016-B.
Mr. Mayor, this is a resolution of the City of High Springs, Florida, determining the amount of and fixing the tentative rate of ad valorem taxation for fiscal year 2016 to 2017, providing for conflict, severability, and effective date. Be it resolved by the City Commission of the City of High Springs, Florida as follows. Section 1, tax increase, that the millage the tentative millage for the fiscal year 2016-2017 is fixed at 6.1326 mils, which is a 0.89% increase from the current rollback rate of 6.0785 mils. Now, that's a very slight increase, Mr. Mayor, over the rollback rate, and that's why that's expressed as an increase. Section 2, millage rate. There should be levied and collected by the City of High Springs, Florida for the fiscal year 2016-2017 upon all non-exempt taxable property within the corporate limits of the city, a tentative tax rate of 6.1326 mils on each dollar of non-exempt appraised value for the purpose of realizing a sum sufficient to fund the budget and meet and defray the necessary operating expenses of said city for the ensuing fiscal year. Section 3, conflicts. All resolutions or parts of resolutions in conflict with any of the provisions of this resolution are hereby repealed. Section 4, severability. If any section or portion or section of this resolution proves to be invalid, unlawful, or unconstitutional, it shall not be held to invalidate or impair the validity, force, or effect of any other section or part of this resolution. Section 5, the effective date. This resolution shall become effective immediately upon its passage and adoption this 8th day of September 2016. City of High Springs, Florida. Signature for yourself, our mayor, Byron D. Williams, and attested by our clerk of the City Commission of the City of High Springs, Jane Parham, City Clerk. The appropriate motion is to pass Resolution 2016-V, as read by its entirety.
All right, thank you, sir. You heard the reading of the resolution. Yes, ma'am.
I was just gonna make sure we point out to anyone that's listening that this 6.1326 is not any change from what it was last year, or this current year, basically.
And Mr. Mayor, the rollback rate is actually 6.0785 mils, which means that's a good thing. That means your properties in the city are increasing in value. You're adding on the value of properties in the city. That means it takes less taxes to fund the same amount of tax that you had last year, and that's what the rollback rate is. We're slightly over the rollback rate, and that's why you have to advertise this as a tax increase, but you're at the same tax level as you were last year. It's just one of those things in the truth and millage law that you have to express it as a tax increase when it's the same tax you had last year. That's basically what's going on.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner, what's your pleasure?
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2016-V as read into the record.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion or questions? Anyone from the audience? Hearing none? Madam Clerk?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, motion carries. Okay. Consider ordinance 2016-08.
Mr. Mayor, this is an ordinance adopting the 2016-2017 fiscal year budget of the City of High Springs, Florida, providing an effective date, whereas the City of High Springs City Commission shall, under the authority of Section 166.241, subparagraph 2 of the Florida statutes and Section 5.04 of the Charter of the City of High Springs, adopt an annual budget for the City of High Springs. And whereas a proposed balanced budget was presented, received, discussed, and amended in advertised public meetings, and whereas the City Commission has determined the level of taxation for the fiscal year 2016, 2017, and the necessary expenditures for the fiscal year of 2016, 2017. Now therefore be it ordained by the City Commission of the City of High Springs as follows. Section 1, the budget for the City of High Springs, Florida for the fiscal year October 1, 2016 through September 30th, 2017 as attached hereto and incorporated herein is hereby adopted. Section 2, this ordinance shall take effect on October 1, 2016, and should you determine to pass it, it will be passed on first reading this evening, the 8th day of September 2016, signature from Byron D. Williams, our mayor, and attested by Jenny L. Parham, our city clerk. The appropriate motion is to pass ordinance 2016-08 upon its reading by its entirety.
Thank you, sir. At this time, discussion and consideration for ordinance 2016-8 on its first reading. So moved.
Second. Second.
Okay. First of all, I just want to say thank you to the city manager and all the staff after looking through your budget. I'm well pleased with it. And I'm assuming that the rest commissioners are pleased with the budget.
Oh, yes. I think we're in a good direction.
Thank you.
I think one thing, Mr. Mayor, that needs to be said is we're doing some things now that haven't been done in a long time. And I Mr. Booth and the staff and finance and everybody within it, there's just a lot of things that are going on now, which is positive for the city. So I'm happy to see that.
Yes, sir. I'm in total agreement with that.
We all are. Yes, indeed.
Okay, anyone from the audience? No one rising? Madam Clerk?
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay, motion carries. Okay, moving on to unfinished business.
Mr. Mayor, at the last meeting, the Kellys appeared, as you'll recollect, and they had the issue with their home that was built over one of the sewer lines. Their contractor was also present, and they were asking for some help from the city. And the direction that we received from the city at that time was to meet and try to achieve some sort of an equitable result, which your city manager grabbed the bull by the horns and did that with the Kellys. And we've worked out an arrangement where they would give a release to the city for any sort of thing that they may deem as a liability to the city for $500. And so the release was drafted. They have a lawyer that is representing them, and they've asked for some modifications to the lease. I don't think the modifications are going to be a big deal. And I think this was more or less a goodwill gesture on the part of the city to move it ahead and put it to bed. We specifically state in the release that the city acknowledges no responsibility whatsoever of liability associated with what happened. But certainly you can't get into dispute with something and settle it for $500. So that's what we would call nominal settlement, and hopefully that will be of some assistance to the Kellys to fix the problem and move on with their lives. And we certainly, as we expressed at the last meeting, we feel compassion to them, but we are governed by what we can do and what we cannot do, and so that's the standard, and that's what's happened. And so I would estimate that by the next couple of days, the release will be signed, the check will be cut, and we're done. So that's within his parameters of spending powers per the city rules and regulations, and this matter should be behind us as far as we know. It's not completely tied up until we get this. We will not release money until they sign the release. That's how this works, and it should be put to rest. So that's the report, Mr. Mayor.
So, I did read the release today, and much people just see we'll make some changes in it.
Right. They've asked for a couple. We had a very broad release drafted up, and they've asked for it to be more confined and restrained, and that's not a problem. We can do that. That shouldn't be a problem at all.
So, Mr. Booth, you satisfied with?
Yeah, absolutely. The cost is $500. It's 1/2 of their deductible, and that's very minimal compared to what the legal fees might have been.
So you don't need any, you're okay with just recording, we don't need to do anything else?
That's right. That's correct.
Sounds good to me.
We would, Mr. Walker, we would want to make sure, and I got this thing, that ain't nothing coming out of the bank until the release is in hand.
Yeah.
That's
And
correct.
the release is
We call that a Chinese trade. I don't know if that's
That's
politically
fine.
correct to say that or not. Maybe that isn't.
It's rubbing off.
Okay, so 6 months from now, when there's an issue,
That's right.
if this release, it's just like anything okay.
Yes, sir.
I just want to say thank you for taking the time to look into it further.
Yes.
Both of you, I think that was a nice thing to do, considering the fact that, as you said, legally the city was not obligated to do it. But as a goodwill gesture, thank you.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Ms. Girl, I see you said, no, you have anything you want to say? Okay, if nothing else, we'll move on then to citizen requests and comments for issues not on the agenda. Please state your name for the record and limit your comments to 5 minutes.
Mike doesn't have anything to say?
He's silent. Oh, okay. That's a first. All right. Okay, moving on to new business. Consider request from the A.M. Urbana Alumni Association, Inc. for the use of the Civic Center on November 25th, 2016, and waiver of associated costs.
Staff has no objection.
Okay.
What is the cost? What is the cost that we're waiving? the fee, what is the
The
fee?
rental,
For the rental fee.
I was just asking what that amount was.
yeah,
$150.
$150.
Oh, okay.
Well, it'd be 100 for deposit, 50 for, even for a nonprofit organization? It is a nonprofit organization.
I'll make a motion to approve the waiver of the fees for the A.L. Mebane Alumni Association for the use of the Civic Center on November 25th, 2016.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Other questions or comments?
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
I make this question in general, not solely for the Mebane Association, in general. When somebody comes in, what insurance do we get from the renting organization? What do they provide for us? Okay, let me just say this, I have a problem, me personally, I only say that for my job in the deal, that we rent a facility out to an organization and they don't provide us a certificate of insurance, naming us as also insured. Because if somebody gets hurt in this activity, they're gonna sue us.
Okay.
And we don't have, and now we're gonna have to use our insurance instead of the renting company's insurance. I don't know what I asked this, I think, a year ago. I asked the same question. I would like for us to look into this and put it into policy that if we're going to allow people to come in and rent, and I'm talking about any facility now, I'm not talking the Civic Center. They all have to have insurance. All of these organizations have to have insurance. All I'm asking is that they provide a certificate of insurance, naming us as additionally insured. So if something happens, that insurance is what, and the city does not incur the cost. We're wide open. And so I don't know what needs to be done, but I mean, I mentioned this last year and here we are again, and it's mind-boggling to me that we don't do this, but what do we need to do?
Direct the city attorney or the staff, whatever,
Yeah.
whoever
Now,
has to
the
look at.
school system
create a
does that?
policy.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll adopt their policy.
Oh,
That
I
okay.
mean, there's a facilities, a rental agreement, but
Right.
within, is that what we have, a facilities rental agreement?
We do? Yeah.
Right on ours, it
And
basically,
in all honesty, that thing is very, very old, and so I would like for y'all to look at it and maybe.
Sure.
I don't think I know it's a public record type of thing, but what I can tell you is there's just a box which basically says insurance provided. And all you'd have to do is add on to the form, it just shows that you've got it.
And then their insurance becomes primary. Ours
Right.
is still there.
It's there, but it's gonna go
it's not
after
gonna
their $1
get
million,
hit.
after
Right.
their $1 million is gone, but
Right.
the persons who are utilizing the facility are responsible for the actions within that. And that's, if somebody were to get hurt or something, you would use that insurance and the city would not be. So I'd like to see that come up fairly quickly for us to act on, please. We can't do it on this one, and I understand that, but I'd like to see that come up fairly quickly. Thank you.
Question on when we're rating the fee to rental, are we requesting the deposit? Because we normally do still request the deposit, and it's
Yeah,
refunded as long as.
I would think you'd want the deposit, make sure it's clean, and then you refund it.
I think that's policy is,
Yeah, that's
Yes.
what done. I just wanted to make sure.
yeah.
Okay. Let me clarify something. The Elmer Van Loss Association, we have insurance.
I had no doubt about that.
We have insurance.
They basically, even with the school board, they all have it.
Yeah.
It's just whether or not we need to be on the certificate as additionally insured, that's all. So it's not that big a deal.
Yes, sir.
I'd just like to see that as a practice.
We got you covered. But we're also using, Mebane School.
Yes, I
And the
know.
city of La Choice, so,
I got you.
yeah.
Like I said, this wasn't, I don't want to make sure this
Yeah.
isn't directed at this, but this is in general. I just want to make sure the city's covered, that's all.
And let me kind of explain what this organization is all about. It's an organization that every year they give out scholarships to young people in the area. Last year, I think we gave out $7,000 in scholarships. So it's been going on for several years now. So it's a very good organization. And basically what we're trying to do is bring in different cities to be sponsors that we can when we do our advertising, we're gonna have High Springs as being a sponsor.
I think it's
that
great.
People can know that High Springs is involved in, helping young people in this community. And with that being said, I guess this is a question for the attorney. Vice Mayor and I are also part of this organization. I'm the vice president, she was a member. So do we need to sustain from voting on this?
No, this is not inuring to your private gain in any way, shape, or form, so no, you don't need to. Now, you can if you want to abstain, but you don't need to for this.
And like I said, all the funds that raised on that weekend, all go towards the scholarships.
That's right.
Each kid. We try to get each kid $1,000 a year. Don't work that very every year, but. Not yet. Okay. All right, I have a motion on the floor. Anyone from the audience have any? Yeah, did we make a motion yet? We did. All in favor, can be saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank y'all so much on behalf of the Elmer Bain Alumni Association. All right, moving on to consider approving an agreement with the North Florida Regional Planning Council.
Mr. Mayor, this is a very straightforward agreement. It's in existence right now, and it's a similar agreement to what we have at present with the North Central Florida Regional Planning Council. Slight increase in the fees. It's $10,000 annually. There is a 15-day out clause for either party. If there's a default in then you have to give 10 days notice, and then you can get out after that. There's a public records provision in the agreement. There is a scope of services, which is Appendix A to the agreement. Our experience has been that North Central Florida Regional Planning Council is giving us support services with zoning issues and comprehensive plan amendment issues. And I would also note that they are stepping up their level of service. So we seem to be getting better service from legal in North Central Florida Regional Planning. Like all government agencies, I think they went through a time where they had a little bit of staffing difficulties with all the budget cuts, but they seem to be giving us better service. So the appropriate motion would be to pass the Local Government Comprehensive Planning Services Agreement between the City of High Springs and North Central Florida Regional Planning Council for the next fiscal year. It's a one-year agreement, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, Mr. Mayor, two questions. One, if I remember right, and I just want to verify that that this is in the next year's budget, correct? Okay. And the other is there any change in the amount from last year to this year? Was there an increase in the
I believe it was.
500 to 10,000.
That's my memory as well.
All right. That's all I have.
Any other questions? Anyone from the audience?
I'll make a motion to approve the city intervention agreement with the North Central Florida Regional Planning Council for comprehensive planning services.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any other questions? Comments?
I got a question, please. Mr. Walker, this is going to catch you off guard, and I apologize for that.
Not a problem.
Can you estimate what we saved by using this as opposed to what we would have spent outside of their?
There's planners that work privately on an hourly basis. You would have exceeded the 7,500. You would have at least doubled, if not tripled, this amount that the North Central Florida Regional Planning Council gives you. So as long as they're giving us the support system, that's what we need. And in my understanding, Courtney's been to most of the Planning and Zoning Board meetings. I've been to several of them, but we haven't had a great deal of work in that. We probably will have more work, and hence the increase in the fee as the economy picks up and we have more work to be done. But Sandra Joseph, who's with the North Central Florida Regional Planning Council, has been at the meetings, and she interfaces with Courtney And so I think we're on a good footing there, and I think things are going in the right direction, but easily double, if not triple, this amount.
And this is
On the private market.
This is a set fee regardless of the amount of work.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Okay, so I just want to make sure,
That's
so I mean, if we really have to use them, it isn't going to double.
If you need a planer in-house, you're looking at 60, 70, depending on
Right,
his qualification, $80,000.
Right, I
So
got it.
you're,
Okay.
you're way higher.
Or just one project that they're doing, and that's trying to determine really where the city is. We had so many annexations that didn't go through, some that did. She's going through all the ordinances and redoing the map. That alone would have been more than 10,000.
Okay, I just want to make sure people listening and so forth, get the best bang for our buck. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone else? Okay. All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item number 3, consider approval of memorandum of agreement with Swanee River Management District.
This is a bit of good news. It's $500,000 in grant proceeds. The memorandum of agreement is between the Swanee River Water Management District and the City of High Springs for project funding. It specifies all of the payments that will be made. It specifies that this is for purposes of the improvements so that nitrates and phosphates will be minimized going into the Hornsby Springs area. That's really the overall purpose of the project. The idea is that it'll extend our sewer system out to Camp Kalakwa, and it'll pay for that extension line, this grant funding. It will also pay for a lift station so that the line will be operational in connection with our sewer system. Then secondarily, if there's any money that's left over from the project, it'll go to the decommissioning of their existing package plant, which is typically a very inefficient way to treat effluent. So that's the whole genesis and purpose of this grant funding. It's right in line with what the state is trying to do to protect our springs areas and our rivers. It also specifies in the grant that we've been over the levels for the nitrates in the Hornsby Springs area historically for many years now. So the whole idea is that we're going to cut down on the amount of nitrates and algae growth and the sort of things so that you'll continue to have very clear springs and high springs. That's the general gist of it. If there's money that is left over at the tail end of all of that, the third element is that it would go to impact fees. So that's where we're at. Courtney sent out a letter to Gary Grunder, who's the attorney that represents Camp Kalakwa today, specifying that we don't know that there's going to be any monies left over when it comes time to pay impact fees or decommissioning the plant even. We don't know if there's monies, because as the economy's heating up, the bid prices are going up. Tim at Midtower is telling us that these bid prices are not static, and so getting this all done for $500,000 may be a challenge, just getting the connection and attachment. And with that, Courtney specified in her letter that if we don't have the money there, then Camp Kalakwa, you're responsible for the connection fees. I think your manager has estimated the impact fees to be roughly around $60,000, maybe a little better than that, and when the time comes. Now, we do have a provision in our impact fee ordinance which says that you can split that fee up. As long as we get the money in our impact fee fund, then that's our objective. Two things that are objective. One is to get the sewer system more operational and more efficient, and adding on a big user like this helps the efficiency of the system, but it also affects, of course, as we said, the environment. But you got to pay the impact fees, and so that's what we've specified to Camp Kalakwa through Mr. Grunder. And the appropriate motion is to pass the agreement and the memorandum of understanding as read.
What happens if when the bids come in, it's over 500,000?
Mr. Booth is going to go back to your legislature, I think.
Yes.
Okay, because we won't move forward and.
No, that's absolutely correct.
Okay.
we want no city money. This is really a project that, that Department, DEP has kind of directed, came up with the money and gave to Swanee River Water Management District. Because the sole beneficiary is a nonprofit organization, and because of the circumstances, if it comes over that, I'll go back to Swanee River, we'll go back to DEP to get some of that, Springs money, which there are quite a bit there.
On this issue of the impact fees, where they may end up having to pay some impact fees, even though we've sent a letter to them, is that sufficient notice, or do we need to have them sign something saying that they know that if there's not enough money to cover the impact fees, they're gonna have to pay?
I think the agreement that's being drafted now and worked with will say that specifically.
Okay, so there is an agreement that they're gonna sign then?
They will have to.
Okay.
As will any of the grinder pump, and that we have an agreement if that they sign if we stretch it out over whatever period of time.
And along with that, so you're saying if any money left over, decommission their system. So if no money's left over, that's their responsibility.
Their responsibility. My guess is they will also try to tap into the system to get them to put more money into it.
If you come back, let's say on the impact fees specifically, that would take a separate action by the commission to extend it to a 2 or 3 year
We'll
period.
have to do a
like it is,
resolution.
right?
That's right. You'll do a resolution.
Right, so
that'll-
that would come back
That's
to
right.
us.
Sure.
That's right.
Another question?
So is there any special thing we need to do on this motion for what
No,
she said regarding the,
no, this is just
The
us
wording.
and Swanee River Water Management. So
Right.
that's all this is. And then step 2 is the agreement as your manager specified. Step 3 is, once we get our bids in and we figure out where we're at, then
Right.
we're going to get additional funding, or, of course, Camp Colaqua could put in additional funding if they have the ability.
No, there was no. But I will make a motion to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the Swanee River Water Management District, reference the Hornsby Springs Water Project.
second?
Motion and a second. I have a question or comments? Anyone from the audience? Okay. Hearing none. All in favor, come in saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Okay, Jenny, consider consolidating September meeting dates.
So we'll still be at 6:30, both? Okay. So that's a budget and regular meeting.
Okay.
I'm fine with that. You need a motion, I guess. I'll make a motion to hold the regular commission meeting currently scheduled for September 22nd on September 19th, along with the budget meeting.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any other questions or comments? Anyone from the audience? Okay. Hearing none. All in favor, come in saying aye.
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 All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Okay. Consider approval of the city attorney contract.
I think staff has no problem with it. It's very similar to what we did before. Certainly the rates have come down considerably when I first got here. But then again, they were putting up with a lot more than that could be expected of attorneys. Staff recommendation is that we go ahead and approve it.
And
Yes.
The rate, the monthly rate is just going up from something to 4,800 something to 52 something?
Yes, sir.
Mhm.
4,500? Okay, yeah, from 4,500 to 5,300 a month, okay.
I think, Mr. Mayor, and correct me if I'm wrong, Courtney, but we've been able to stay within the monthly retainer, I think, the entire last year. No, I'm wrong. Well, we're substantially, maybe I should say this, substantially in the retainer contract.
Right.
Which is, I think what your manager was saying is we're vastly different than our previous experience, that we were putting out a lot of fires, but we're in pretty good shape now, and we don't see things on the horizon that will change that. So I think we're in pretty good shape to stay within that. And the contract says if we're gonna go outside the retainer amount, the monthly retainer amount, we need to notify Mr. Booth and tell him what is going on and give him a budget and say, this is where the problem is. That sort of thing. Of course, he's going to communicate that to you all.
Now, only other question I have is, as far as the hourly rates go, when you're outside, if those rates are gonna go up, then we'll be notified, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Any other questions?
This is the same that was presented to us during the budget.
It's already budgeted.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Right.
This accounts for the money when we approve the budget. You're saying this is just procedural type of thing. Okay. I'll make the motion to approve it.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Any other questions or comments? Anyone from the audience? Okay. All in
Keep us
favor?
out of litigation.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Will do.
All in favor, can be saying aye?
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Okay, City Attorney report and updates.
Anything, Courtney? No, sir.
City Manager?
You bet. There are a couple things that I put down here, but I have a couple items I need to talk about first. Number one is the storm. The employees did a great job. This was a great dress rehearsal. They were out there, both fire, police, and public works, cleaned up the streets within a day. One of the projects the public works has had, which is to take down the trees on the right-of-way that look like they're coming down. Obviously, a great project. We had very few trees on city right-of-ways that came down. Most of them were on the state right-of-way in people's homes. But we took care of very few problems on that way. We'll continue that project because obviously it's paying a dividend. We had really the city up and running and going before the electric came back on. If there was an Achilles heel, I would say that it was Clay Electric and Duke not getting the power back on fast enough, because it really wasn't that damaged. So I am convinced that we could handle a storm greater than the one that came through without having much problem. And so attaboys to the city crews. Jennifer is going to be the city manager next week.
Whoa.
I know, hey, yeah.
We don't have to vote on that?
I don't think so. I will be in Dallas and then coming back. Now
We'll be doing combat duty.
combat duty, that's right. Picking up a combat vehicle. We're, all right, I need to talk about the couple of people that came here that were asking for it. The gentleman that came through here that wanted his irrigation meter reduced in price. We looked at that, talked to the staff, specifically Public Works, and they really have convinced me that the price that we charge is under the price that it cost us to do the work. I know that he might have gotten some off-the-wall company to do it cheaper, but the truth is we wouldn't have allowed those kind of meters in anyway onto our system because we have backflow prevention and all kinds of other issues. So the answer is really no. And it would be unfair for the citizens that are paying into the water, as myself and everybody here, to subsidize that. So,
I thought he mentioned there were a couple cities who had it less, not a company. I thought he specifically mentioned cities
that,
provided it for less. One was over.
yeah,
and
one was over,
And one was less.
and
like
Alachua was a
$400.
little less.
Okay.
But Alachua has more resources and a larger system than we have at this
So-
time.
Is that the meter, or is that the cost of the water?
No, I thought he
No,
said
it's the meter.
The
I
meter
thought he said
itself?
when you came
Yeah,
in. So my
that's
question,
right.
so if somebody were to come in and ask this very question, we would have a itemized, Jennifer, we would have an itemized sheet to show the cost, so this would take care of itself right up front. You would be able, this is what it costs to do what's being
Mhm.
asked.
Yes, and the person that came up there actually received that.
Okay, I
Yeah.
just wanna make sure, I mean, if it happens again, we would
Right.
be able to show them.
Correct.
Okay.
And he's right. Alachua charges whatever $600, and Newberry charges $1,000, and we're right in the middle at 800.
Just as long as we can justify the cost is all I'm saying.
That's
You got it.
yes.
Okay.
All right, the neighbors with barbers. This has been a problem going on for more than 10 years. I have some pictures we're going to show, and this has to do more with the zoning, and it's zone C3. It's also in the traditional city area that's within our comprehensive plan. This is Barbers, and they're basically a truck company. They're a heavy duty and light duty towing company. That's just their, you can next. So what they do is they tow in these vehicles, and in this case, this was a camper, and then they work on them to get them running, and that's well within the zoning to do so. Also, you can show the next picture. Okay, he is building a confinement or a maintenance area that will be enclosed so that when he brings a truck in, you won't hear the noise. And I think that's one of their major objection is the noise, but it is zoned correctly, and the noise is simply truck noise.
Is that noise, or are they complaining that the noise is at night or during the day, or it's just anytime?
Anytime. Now let me put one caveat. About 3 or 4 months ago, he had these reefer trucks. These are refrigerated trucks running all night, and that's where I gave him an order to move those out because he wasn't zoned that way properly. The next slide shows this is a case where he brought in a truck. Again, it got towed in. It was doing minor maintenance, replacing batteries and doing electrical to it, and that's well within the zoning of that area. The next one, please. And this is his back lot. And his back lot basically now has automobiles and a few light trucks. What he is willing to do, and what we've asked him to do also, is to put up a fence in the back to block off the whatever noise or sightliness to it. But that they sent me a letter demanding that I have a meeting with them, the attorney, Scott, and it be recorded. I've turned that over to our attorneys because it just sounded too litigious for me to have that kind of a meeting. And frankly, I don't like demand meetings or demand letters anyway. From the building official and myself, which is the zoning administrator, we see this business being within the zone, and we will keep looking at him as I go out. I'll keep looking at his back lot and the trucks.
Within the zoning, is there any hours of operation?
It doesn't indicate there is.
that there is a noise
That's
ordinance.
I was gonna say, that's a problem. I don't want somebody working on a truck at 2 in the morning.
No, I know, we don't either. And
So how do you address that? If it's 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, how do we address the noise issue?
then that becomes a ordinance issue.
Because I think that's what the main complaint is, what I understand, was more
Right.
the noise.
Right,
it's-
we haven't seen it, because we go out in the evening too, and we haven't seen that so far. But, you know, there are times when we can't say that you're going to tow a truck, and it's 2 in the morning, it's okay if you tow it in, just don't work on it till the morning.
Exactly.
Right, I agree.
No, they don't work on it till the
They
morning.
don't, that's what we, yes.
Right.
They tow it in and they may be making noise towing it in.
Yes, I
got
that.
But they're not
Sure.
working on it. And since you've turned this over to our attorneys, are they meeting with anybody, or what is their approach going to be on this?
Well, first of
City-
all, if there's a violation of our noise ordinance, Chief, do we have a noise meter that we utilize? I know the sheriff has several noise meters, but I don't
It's a
know if
standard,
we've got one or not.
it's a man standard.
Not have a noise meter. If you can recall several years back, one administration was looking at that, and the noise meter is alerting very close. So we go by the noise ordinance that's currently, which I use different times, and I think it's 50 feet or so that you can hear from the property value.
A reasonable person or whatever they have.
And there's a case that just happened, what was it, 2 years ago, that said that standard, even though it's a very subjective standard, is valid. It went to the Florida Supreme Court and they affirmed that standard. So that particular standard, if it is to a reasonable person a nuisance 50 feet from the property line, is typically, I don't have, I can look it up, but that's typically what the standards are. So that is doable, and I know the sheriff's office would give us the noise meter and bring somebody out probably and assist if we wanted to do that, to get some additional data if we find that there is a continuing and ongoing problem there. So our approach, Chief, it looked like you were getting ready to say something.
Just going to add to that, the decimal reading on those meters, you have to be certified in them. And plus, sometimes a motorcycle, a loud car, or just a conversation in the neighborhood could exceed that decibel level that say you're in violation.
Right, exactly right. So our approach would be to, study the zoning and determine if there's any further problems. It sounds like the manager is working with the business owner to try to do some buffering, some noise attenuation. Perhaps we can work out some hours of operation so that we can settle. There's nothing like a good neighborhood dispute or neighbor dispute.
Yeah.
The city staff has sent us all the paperwork that they have and the times that they've been out, and we've got a meeting on Monday morning to talk to the building official to go through all that with him and then see where we go from there with discussing this with the
Because it seems to
people
me
making
that
the
there
complaint.
needs to be, whether it's you or staff or whoever needs, at some point needs to meet with the citizens to say,
right.
Absolutely, that's
this
our,
is where we're at, this is what we can do, this is what we can't do.
That's right.
right, that's our plan. After we speak with the building official and we've gone through all that documentation, then we'll feel comfortable to reach out to them so that we've got a full view on what's happening.
Have they been told that that's what we're doing? So that they're just not sitting out there saying we're not responding to anything?
That's a very good idea, and we will do that.
I think the noise barrier probably is, which will stop the noise at night bringing in a truck, not working, but will alleviate some of the complaint. The other thing is, you have in front of you a thing from Duke Energy. It shows savings of about $10,000 a year. There are no contracts with them in investigating them putting in the LDE lights. This is where the savings comes from, and you see where all the lights that are done. That was an easy save, but the more we save, the more we get ahead. On that refinancing of the bond, we are investigating and it's now in the hands of the finance director and the attorneys. They're investigating all avenues. This may result in an RFQ going out at some time. Apparently, we are just paid off the bonds, so we have another year before another payment is due. So, and Courtney has experience in refinancing for Newberry, so that's a really good. So we may in the initial paperwork we got from this one individual, it showed we'd probably save somewhere in the neighborhood of $30,000 per year. But again, 10,000 here, 30,000 there, stuff that.
Over how many years?
It would be over 30. And right now we owe about 32 years for the bonds.
You're saying 30 years at 30,000 a year.
Right.
$9 million? And I'm just throwing it in there.
About $1 million. Well, sure, you work for an organization that spends a lot of money. Sue and I have been keeping a vigil on the county. She's actually on the board with the county that has to do with the stormwater manual. And their thing is, the manual sounds nebulous. They want to permit the city. So every construction that happens in a city would have to be permitted by the county. We had a meeting on Monday. My whole thing about this is, because this appears to go over Sue's time on the council, I would recommend she stay as part of that group.
That's actually the Alachua League of Cities appointment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, well then, well, whatever. But
So
I
you
know
can
she
send someone from the
represents.
commission to the Alachua League of Cities board and let them appoint someone from the commission.
Yeah, I know, but you've been there so long and know all the ins and outs of that group, and she keeps me from saying my mind. So I've been
We need you for that reason only, Sue.
fairly, yeah, I know. I only just say the facts.
Yeah,
but
well, just one of the things I'd like to also say about this that they're proposing to do is what they call the BAMs, and this is what the materials that they use, that they're looking to require you to line your retention ponds with, if you know, the stormwater drains and all that, or the stormwater. Besides what we think the cost is going to be per household to do that, some of those, and you could do cheaper ones, but they would only last 5 to 6 years, and the more reliable one, if you will, would last 20 years. But the problem is, when you get to that point, then who's going to be responsible for paying to replace that? And they're not looking, the county's not looking to do it, you know, and it's not going to be the HOAs, you know, they're looking at the government possibly, and then they're talking about a stormwater utility fee,
Right.
so that can be done. So there's a lot of issues in this whole thing.
Right. Now, Gainesville has a utility, stormwater utility, and the other cities do not. I have been involved with cities that have stormwater utility, where they charge you a certain amount for your roof, the size roof you have, and then every month you pay for that utility, and the money goes into things like street sweepers and culverts and everything else, and paying for this kind of thing. It is the reduction of the nitrates and us taking off or out of the system all the and putting on our sewer system takes away the nitrates going into the springs at a much greater rate than this scheme would ever do. So
when does the seed have to be fixed?
After November.
So after the election?
Yes.
Have to do that, so that would be something that's on an agenda item?
Generally, it's just an appointment to the Alachua League of Cities, and the commission will just decide who from the commission would fill that seat on the Alachua League of Cities, and then the Alachua League of Cities would determine who's going to represent them on this board.
And that's it? That's it?
I'm good.
You sure you're good?
I made it
You're
through the-
ill, but you're good?
Yeah, I know.
I made it through the meeting, man. Now, if you'll just finish this thing quick, I'll be
Okay.
in good
Okay.
shape.
I only have one thing, and that is, two things. One, we have the ribbon cutting September,
Yeah.
Saturday for the Civic Center Park and for Catherine Taylor Park.
Mm-hmm.
And we have the 9/11 rededication ceremony in front of the fire department on Sunday at 8:40. I would like, it would be nice if we could
Yep.
attend.
Sunday.
And
That's
you're
when
gonna
the
be
first
speaking
airplane went
at
into
the
the-
9/11.
Yeah.
The building.
Hello, goodbye.
Yeah.
What time
Mhm.
is the ribbon cut?
One's at 10 at Civic Center, and one's,
Mhm.
and the Captain Taylor's at 11. That's all I have.
The recreation board will be out there, so, and I'll be out there.
The Civic Center is at 10 o'clock?
Yes,
Yes,
And
11.
Catherine Taylor Park.
it's at
11.
11.
Okay. Now, also at 10 o'clock, we have a ribbon cutting for the Roman Dogs, I think it's called.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, over in the Summers building.
Really? Okay.
It's at 10 o'clock as well.
Hmm,
Mm-hmm. There's quite a few things going on.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it appears to me that down in that same building where the restaurant doesn't seem to do very well across from the senior citizen place, there's another one moving in called Smoked and Fried. So, I don't
yes.
know.
Yeah, I know what you're
Yeah,
talking about.
Right.
Smoked and Fried.
Where Gator Q's used to be,
Well,
and where
that's right.
Yeah.
Cowgirls.
It's just a turnover
Yeah,
in that
yeah, I
same
know.
spot.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the spot or what it is.
People without a business plan, for one
Yeah,
thing.
exactly. That's it for me.
Only thing I have, in mind with the, ribbon cutting, I can make one at 10. But I can't make one at 11. I was trying to split myself up, but it's
Sure,
just
that's all right.
impossible.
I'll be out there and there'll be plenty of representation.
Yeah, because I'm gonna try to make the one at 11.
Okay, that'd be great. And I do
Okay.
one at 10.
Okay.
That sounds good to me. There's nothing else.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Meeting adjourned.